Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. And above all else, that you're indeed looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with yet another segment of Going for the One, where for the month of September, we are going through looking back on our favorite debut albums. And today it is my turn. I'm going to be talking to you about an album that I truly love. And we are looking at the debut release from Queen, right? Big surprise. Me being a big Queen fan, and we're talking about the debut album from Queen. Now, uh, Queen with their debut release, and just to go back a little bit, I will be talking about the original 10-track release. I'm not going to be talking about the 2024 reissue remastered version under the title of Queen 1. This is the original release. Now, Queen was released on the 13th of July, 1973 in the UK through EMI and on September 4th, 1973 in the US through Elektra Records. It was recorded between excuse me, December of 1971 through January of 1972, and also April to July 20th of 1972 at Delane Lee and Trident Studios, respectively. In the band, you had the original lineup, Freddie Mercury on lead vocals, Roger Meadows Taylor on drums and percussion and vocals, Brian May on guitars and backing vocals, and one Deacon John on bass guitar. Deacon John, otherwise known as John Deacon, was dubbed Deacon John by producer John Anthony because he thought it had more of a rock star appeal in terms of a name. And it wasn't until the second album that was going to be released that John Deacon insisted on being called John Deacon. He was quite upset that John Anthony would even try and do that. Now, the album was produced by John Anthony, as I just said, John Anthony, who at that point had worked with Genesis on Nursery Crime, and one Roy Baker, who would also known as Roy Thomas Baker, rest in peace. Roy Thomas Baker would go on to work with Queen up until A Night at the Opera, and then again on the album Jazz in 1978. Now, the album Queen, in terms of its style, the first two Queen albums, I mean, everyone knows Queen as being, you know, in terms of their style, they would go all over the place from ragtime jazz to pop, jangle pop to vaudeville. But the first two Queen albums were pretty much at the root of it all, a hard rock uh, outfit and in terms of the genre, hard rock genre. And in terms of the sound of Queen on the album, it really, the original recording had a bit of not a bit of a very muddy sound. Um, and Brian May has gone on to say that he hates the drum sound on the first three Queen albums. But, he's the guitarist, so he's allowed to say that. For me, I've known of this album since I was 13 years old, and I love this album. The album has a playing time overall of 38 minutes and 46 seconds. Four tracks on side one, and six tracks on side two. And I'm just going to go through the tracks with you briefly here. Starts off with the lead off single, Keep Yourself Alive, which was rejected no less than five times by the BBC for their being on their playlist. And it really never gained any momentum. At all. And this song was actually the first song to ever be recorded by the band overall, properly for the album. Up next is Doing All Right, which is a co-write between Brian May and Tim Staffel, who was in the band with him and with Brian May and Roger Taylor by the name of Smile. And this track has different sections to it. Soft piano in the beginning, bit of a jazz section in the middle, and heavy rock guitars, pretty much for most of the verses. But it goes through different time signatures, different textures. Beautiful harmony vocals. Up next is the first composition from Freddie Mercury on the album called Great King Rat, and one of the longest tracks on the album, 5 minutes and 41 seconds. Uh, Heavy guitar from Brian May, different sections to this piece. Very There's some biblical references in this track in terms of the lyrical content. The drum pattern for this song is pretty much like a galloping drum pattern to it. But again, different sections to it. Heavy vocals, heavy drumming, heavy guitar, uh, very heavy harmony vocals on this track. The final track on side one is a piece called My Fairy King. This song, clocking in at 4 minutes and 7 seconds. The original version of this song I found out is 6 minutes long, but this has been edited down for the original release. Beautiful piano, beautiful harmony vocals, very sort of ethereal vocal delivery from Freddie Mercury on the verses. Somewhat pastoral, but in some sections, but you'll also hear Roger Taylor coming through on heavy harmony vocals, which I believe is an F sharp that he hits when he does it. Now, there's been a reissue of this track that's been released on YouTube uh, with uh, with a lyric video, and I'm glad that they released it because the sound in the original recording was so muddy that I, after listening to it for X amount of years, I'm not going to date myself here, but after listening to it for X amount of years, I still couldn't make out what the hell he was singing because the vocal lines were done so precise and so close together and overlapping one another that you couldn't really make out what he was singing about. Um, but he does sing in more of uh, a mystical land, a lot of mystical lyric themes, etc. And as he put it, he did. Listen to me talk. He did sing in a very sort of airy fairy kind of motif when he would write his lyrics in the beginning. And it should be said too, the original title for this album was going to be called Deary Me, but both EMI and Elektra put the kibosh on that. They stopped that right away. There was no way they were going to let that happen. Anyways, side two starts off with, again, the longest track on the album, Liar, which was a song that Freddie Mercury had when he was in the band, his first band called Wreckage. And it started off as a song called Lover, but they changed it to Liar. Heavy drums, heavy guitars, multi-section use of congas on this track on one section. Uh, Again, very religious themed, but beautifully done. Elektra Records, in their infinite ignorance, released a single for this in February of 74, and they chopped this down from 6 minutes and 24 seconds to a paltry, measly 3 minutes and 18 seconds. This song failed to chart, obviously, and Brian May, as said before, has vowed that this song will never, ever be released on any box set or compilation ever again. This song would stretch out to be as long as 9 minutes and change when they would do it live, and it was a crowd favorite. This song has everything in it: harmonies, heavy guitar, good drumming, just brilliant, intricate arrangements, and it's a centerpiece of the album. Up next is the track "The Night Comes Down" at 4 minutes and 24 seconds. The original version of the album has the Delane Lee demo on the album because they felt that they could never recreate it properly for a proper recording of this track. And this track was released as the first single for the reissue of the Queen One set in 2024. Up next is The Roger Taylor penned Modern Times Rock and Roll. Proto metal is the only way I can describe it. Fast-paced tempo on the drums, blistering guitar from Brian May. Roger Taylor delivers a guttural vocal on this. Freddie Mercury would sing this live when they would do it, and he would also flub the lyrics because he was famous for doing that in the early stages of their career. But on vinyl and on CD, the studio version is again a minute and 48 seconds of just blistering rock. Again, proto metal. Up next is the Brian May penned Son and Daughter at 3 minutes and 19 seconds. Blues galore, just heavy, thick guitar tone, beautiful harmony vocals delivered by the band, and they could recreate the vocals live in the early stages. If you want to hear a good version of this song done live, check out Queen Live at the Rainbow 74, which you can watch it on YouTube. They do this live, and when this song was done live, uh, they would go off into an improv section where the Freddie Mercury would leave, change clothes, and Brian May would go into the guitar solo that would show up on Brighton Rock on Sheer Heart Attack. After Son and Daughter, you have Jesus, another Freddie Mercury pen track, again telling the story of Jesus Christ, and just very heavy guitar from Brian May. Beautiful harmony vocals delivered by the band, by the three of them. It's even though it's 3 minutes and 45 seconds, there is a section where it goes off into um, a bit of an instrumental interlude, but heavy guitars, heavy drumming, uh, really good thick guitar tone. I've always loved Brian May's guitar tone, and it's very unique when you hear it. Whenever you hear a Queen song on the radio, you know it's Queen. Not even from the vocals, but from the arrangement of the song and the sound of the guitar. You know it's Queen. And very few bands out there that are able to manage that. But I'm biased on Queen, so there you go. The album ends with the track Seven Seas of Rye at 1 minute and 15 seconds. This song was it's a Freddie Mercury composition. Again, song themes of mystical lands, etc., are abound here. And this song originally was going to be finished for the first album. He couldn't finish it in time, so they decided to leave it as a good ending track, as a teaser for what was to come. Starts off very sort of mid-tempo on the piano, and as it kicks into the song proper with the drums and the bass and the guitar, as it fades out, it gains speed and intensity, and tempo increases on the fade out. This song was supposed to be the start of a track, the opening track for Queen 2. But that, as a continuation from the first album, but that idea got quickly nixed, and it ended off Queen 2. But in terms of the album overall, and the reason why I love this album, I can honestly say that this album, along with Queen 2, I've gone on record as saying that Queen 2 is my favorite album, which it is. I would say that this is a close second. I know people are saying, my God, A Night at the Opera, you know, A Day at the Races. How could you say that this is a close second? To me, it's all about feelings that this album brings up in me when I hear it. And that overrides anything else in terms of what you like for me in terms of an album. And I just think that this album, from start to finish, is a fantastic album. The review for this album, but I don't quote me on this, but I do believe it was from Rolling Stone. One of the reviews said that Queen have picked up where Led Zeppelin had left off in terms of being a heavy rock band. And because when you think of the album when it was released, look, if you look at the albums that were released at this time, you had Dark Side of the Moon, you had Houses of the Holy, uh, You had, King Crimson. I was going to say Lark's Tongue and Aspic, but and you also had, yes, with Tales of Topographic Oceans. Triumph for Turd aside, you had a myriad of albums that were coming out. Genesis was selling England by the pound. You had a list of bands were coming out with all sorts of different colors and textures musically, and Queen were at this point trying to get their foot in the door. And they wanted to present a heavy band musically with the use of harmony vocals on top,
Mhm.
right? And I personally think, my very humble biased opinion, they succeeded 1000%. Nobody can, okay? Your excuse. It's okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My take on Queen. Not Queen One, but Queen. So, and why I think it's my favorite debut album.
Armando, how did you find Queen? What introduced you to
Hmm. A weekend in May in 1982, I had a day off school. Uh, when we were in grade school, it was called Professional Development Days, where we get a month, not a month, one day out of the month off from school.
him? Okay.
And my brother-in-law at the time loaned me his what they call ghetto blasters, and he had the original Queen
Okay.
greatest hits. And I listened that thing to death. I'm surprised the tape didn't snap. And after listening to the original greatest hits, I fell in love with the band. I just, you want to talk about hook, line, and sinker? I dove in head first, bathing suit on, just going for the deep end. And I bought every single album.
Yeah.
I thought they were just brilliant. And I drove people nuts. You need to listen to Queen. You need to listen to Queen. And I will say that at the same time, Queen had just come out with Hot Space,
Mhm.
and Mario had come because my sister and Mario were getting engaged that weekend, and we were having a big dinner at the house. So he had come over with a copy of Hot Space.
Mhm.
And he took out the Queen tape, and I got upset. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Listen to this." So he put the Hot Space tape in, and even then I knew that Hot Space was different from what they were doing before. Even at 12 years old or 11 at the time, I knew that that was different than what they were had done previous. But that was it. That was the reason why. I
Isn't
just
it amazing how good the old music sounded off of Ghetto Blasters?
yeah. Yeah.
Those were the okay.
And the funny thing is, really quickly, hearing songs like Keep You, like I knew Bohemian Rhapsody uh, and another one Bites the Dust and Crazy Little Thing Called Love. I thought songs like Killer Queen and Bicycle Race were new. I didn't know that they were that they
Yeah.
were, like singles, that they were released before. I thought they were new songs. So I was like, this is brand new. And the
Sure.
greatest hits had Under Pressure on it at the end of side one. So I was just I dove in like you wouldn't believe. I went crazy. I bought every album I could get my hands on, cassette album, and then yeah, I loved it. I couldn't, and it's never left me. It's never left me. So any other comments, questions, critiques?
I'm good.
So Ghosh?
Clearly passionate about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not really familiar with this phase of Queen. I was very much a greatest hits person. I stuck with volume one and two and very rarely ventured out beyond that. So it's a lot of catch up I still have to do with Queen.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a ride. It's a hell of a ride. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Another segment of Going for the One, a very convoluted, possibly, episode of Going for the One with my description of Queen. Please put down the comments below your opinion of this album or any album debut release that you find is your favorite. And again, we would like to get a dialogue going um, on these albums and any choices that you want to talk about. So for Sagosh, Ken, and Jim, I'm Armando signing off. Again, click like and subscribe and do hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we got coming up. And we'll see you soon with another segment of Going for the One. Bye for now.